What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 698 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags of the Week. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, talking a little bit low today because it is 1 a.m. and I don't want to wake up my beautiful wife. But I am running down all the things I feel like talking about on this episode, solo edition, because it is 1 a.m. And of course, we have a crazy week of, or weekend, I should say, of pay-per-view stuff ahead of time, so I'm not volunteering Rob and or Callum to be a part of this podcast. Give them a little bit of a break. It's my responsibility more than anybody else's. I did want to make sure that I did have an episode of the Hot Tags for you guys, though, and there are actually quite a bit of things that are on the schedule for me to talk about here, and most of them are AEW related. So, it's going to be kind of one of those podcasts. I, of course, always want to know what you have to say. So whether you agree or you disagree with me, I always welcome the comments below. If you're, of course, listening elsewhere, then leave a comment on whatever the platform that is, or hop on over to YouTube and do that. If you are hopping over to YouTube to leave a comment, you should also make sure that you hit the like button. Make sure that you share this with people with the little share button, or copy the link, whatever it is. Make sure you are subscribed and ring that notification bell, because we do have some podcasts coming your way that'll be the live podcasts like we usually do here after the pay-per-views with the post shows. We've got the NXT Stand and Deliver one, which at this point it's looking more and more like it's going to be a very rushed job that I will probably do solo, I'm assuming, because this is set to end at 3:45 p.m. and the pre-show for the WrestleMania on Saturday is going to start at 4. So if they even end at 3:45, that'll be a 15-minute window before the next thing starts. Maybe it's going to be a 15-minute podcast. Maybe it's going to be 20-something minutes and I go over a little bit. I don't know. I'm going to try to get something in there, though. And, I'm doing the best that I can. That's a general rule of thumb of life. I'm doing the best that I can. It's one of those days. So, keep in mind that, of course, not only will there be that, but there will be a post-show immediately following WrestleMania Saturday and WrestleMania Sunday, and then we roll along into next week and stuff, and you never know when a live show is going to happen, so if you have those email alerts set up, then when we do decide to go live, even if it's spontaneous or something, then you will get an email that says that we are live, and then you can join us and, have some fun and all. Super Chats, when you're up on the live feed, are a great means to help us out. The thanks button when you're not live is another means to do that. Make sure that you join the YouTube channel membership with the subscribe button, not the subscribe button, the thing next to the subscribe button, the join button. Or if you want to be on Patreon instead, patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment. If you want to pick up some merchandise, Redbubble and TeePublic, all those things go a long way in helping us continue to keep doing this stuff. And of course, join our Discord server if you want to have some fun over on there. We're going to be doing more and more through that whole setup, if I figure some stuff out, a little bit at a time. One-man show. I'm trying to learn brand new things and strategize and then do my other work and everything. So if you have any ideas about the Discord server that you are interested in or something, that would go a long way as well in helping me go, okay, well, maybe I'll start looking into this and that and whatever. Anyway, we don't want to do too many plugs. It's already been 3 minutes plugs or something. So let's get into the hot tags. Let's talk about, first off, how terrible WWE's PR has been this week, at least as far as I'm concerned when it comes to, I don't like getting into super duper, deep politics on here, but you know how I feel. And, screw Roman Reigns for his opinions that he just put out recently. Also, Stephanie McMahon says that she has a no douchebags rule on her podcast, yet she brings Dana White on there. So I guess slapping your wife does not constitute being a douchebag. So my opinion of Stephanie, of course, goes down even further again. And then Triple H bitching and complaining about people that are critical of the product and saying that that's like the typical thing that we see it even recently when it came to, oh God, who was it that was just complaining about something on, there was one of the wrestlers, one of the female wrestlers, blanking on who it was, but it was somebody that was complaining, being like, oh, people shouldn't be complaining about like the way that people wrestle or something. And it's like, look, it's the same rule of thumb as anything else. And everybody is too stupid when they have this kind of an argument to realize that they're really just being, hypocritical and egotistical. The issue isn't somebody doesn't like something that you like and that they're critical of it and that they're wrong. The issue is you don't like that they don't like you or your thing, and that's upsetting to you. But the reality is you do the exact same thing with other things and you think that it's perfectly fine. That is the definition of being hypocritical, because I guarantee you Triple H complaining about how people watch the product and they complain about it and that they should just like shut up and be a good fan and whatever. I guarantee you Triple H, at least at some point in his life, has eaten a bad meal at a restaurant and complained about it. Or he's watched a movie and he said that sucked and they should have done that better. Or he has had somebody work on his car and he's been like, oh, you didn't fix that right. Or anything along those lines. It's the exact same fucking thing. I am never, have never, and will never be upset over somebody saying that they don't like my work. I will be upset over somebody accusing me of something that it's factually not true, or when they are being completely unreasonable in a way that doesn't make any sense. When somebody says, oh, you are just like paid off by WWE or by AEW. I'm both, depending on who it is. Somebody was complaining the other day about like you AEW shills, and I'm like, do you want to go to another editorial of mine and see the people that say I'm a WWE shill? Because it's like I can't be both, and I'm not either of them. Hence what starting this whole podcast off with being like, screw the way that WWE's talking lately. But that's not like the same thing as somebody being like, oh, I don't like the audio quality of this podcast. Then I'll be like, okay, well, maybe there's something I can fix about that. Constructive criticism. Or somebody just being like, I don't think that the name Hot Tags, for instance, is like super entertaining or interesting or clever or whatever. Okay, well, I like it, and you can have in your opinion, and that's fine. I disagree. That's why I always start off these podcasts by saying, like, if you agree or you disagree, leave a comment. Because it's fine to disagree, and people have opinions and they should have opinions. So I will always be that type of person that will start something off saying something like that, and I will own up to it. And I think that Triple H, with the way that he was just talking, it proves that he doesn't have the spine for that, or that he is having a really bad day and he's just going to be hypocritical, whatever it might be, but he's wrong. And I think that is very hypocritical, very stupid, and I have not been seeing a whole lot of good press on the past few days heading into WrestleMania. I've been seeing a lot of things that have been really annoying, a lot of things that have been pissing people off. It's not great. Maybe they should stop doing these interviews on the road to WrestleMania if they're not going to be having some good things to talk about and all. Anyway, that's one thing I wanted to get off my chest a little bit, just because I'm having one of those days and, the world is shit. And I absolutely hate the people that decided that this was how they wanted the things in the world to be. And you can all burn in hell. I'll just say it because I don't care anymore. Anyway, let's talk about some other things where it could be a little bit more positive about that stuff. I'm sure I alienated everybody that is, on the other side of the fence when it comes to those things anyway, but, whatever. Tetsuya Naito and Bushi are leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, I don't watch New Japan, and this is one of those things where Callum is going to have a lot more to say about this, and he would have a lot more context, and Rob would as well. But hey, it's just me, so you're getting my perspective of this. Those are surprising. I don't know too much about Bushi, but from what I have seen and, like what I'm aware of and everything like that, he is not the type of person that I would assume would be, getting signed to WWE or anything. I believe he's in his 40s. And, we've seen plenty of people in their 40s go around at different companies and still have decent runs and everything like that. He is 42 right now. So, I mean, he's not a big enough name that I would think that WWE would be like, okay, well, it's worth the investment for us to bring him in and to, make a big splash about him or anything like that. Naito, I believe, is around the same age too. Let me double check that. He is also 42, yeah. But supposedly he's had a lot of injury issues and everything, and WWE wouldn't really realistically look at a 42-year-old from Japan who, let's be perfectly honest, Naito is not a household name in America. It's like, okay, well, you're bringing in somebody like a Hulk Hogan during prime Hulkamania, or you're signing a John Cena or something like that. Somebody with injuries and somebody who's on the older side and somebody who doesn't have that kind of same popularity, I can't imagine that WWE is going to sign him either. Kind of feels like this is one of those things where Tony Khan might end up signing him to a ridiculously big contract that he doesn't end up getting used all that much, because there's plenty of people that are underneath that too. Like Kota Ibushi, for instance, all the injuries have stopped him from being able to wrestle and all, and I'm sure he's getting paid pretty well. Maybe they just don't end up wrestling all that much more. I don't know. Again, Rob and Callum would have more to say about, like, maybe they would go here, maybe they go there, that kind of a thing. But I would be very shocked to see either of them in WWE or AEW. More so, I would be shocked to see them in WWE. And for them to leave New Japan, either that means that they decided that they wanted to leave for any particular reason, or that New Japan was like, all right, well, we just don't want to pay you anymore, and, you're not worth the investment. If it's the latter, obviously I hope that they bounce back and stuff. I don't know them personally, but I'm never going to wish ill will on somebody that I don't know would deserve it. And if it's them choosing to go elsewhere, then I'm very curious where they decide to go, because that would kind of imply that they would have already had those discussions anyway. But I'm sort of assuming that it might just be that they're just done, maybe? I don't know. It's kind of crazy, at least from an outsider's perspective. But there are two other people that are being rumored to be joining WWE relatively soon. One of them is Jeff Cobb, and he apparently could be anywhere even as far as like this weekend or so. I believe Rob had said that his last match that he had scheduled is like on Saturday. And if that's true, then obviously he's not going to be at WrestleMania on Saturday, but he could be, theoretically, it's somewhat possible for him to be at WrestleMania on Sunday. I don't think that that's going to be the case by pretty much any means whatsoever. I think that's asking a lot. First off, he would have to sign with WWE, then he would have to fly there. They would have to have plans for that. It's WrestleMania, so they wouldn't have that kind of a plan, like just lingering around all that much. And I do think that there's going to be something else in mind. Randy Orton's going to address the whole opponent thing on SmackDown tonight. So I am still expecting it to be Aleister Black more than anything. I would rather it be Nick Aldis, but I think it's going to be Aleister Black. Could be Rusev. Could maybe be somebody else. But I think it's going to be Aleister Black, not Jeff Cobb. And Mariah May supposedly had been saying flat out that she is not going to re-sign her contract when that is up. I believe it is supposed to be up in November. So a few more months, and then she is out of the company, which, maybe that means that WWE signs her, snatches her up, and she's, a surprise in the Royal Rumble or something like that. Maybe it means that she's not even seen in AEW for the next few months, because Tony Khan has done this in the past. WWE has as well. It's not like he's the only person that's done it, but sometimes when people say that they don't want to re-sign, they just get kept off television, and then it's like, all right, well, we're just not going to use you because we don't see any purpose in putting you on TV. I have always been more, and maybe I would change my mind if I was actually in their shoes, but I've always been more of the proponent of the idea of you should use them and you should job them out. Like if I'm Tony Khan and Mariah May tells me, look, in November, I am not re-signing. I want to go to WWE. I'm putting my feelers out there. They already know that I want to sign with them in whatever contract tampering thing that, to avoid that. But I am not planning on re-signing. Do with me what you want in the meantime, but I'd request my release. I'd rather be let out earlier. I would either debate, okay, well, let's negotiate another contract thing where we negotiate that I don't pay you for the rest of this contract. Like, you either reimburse me if I've already paid you, or if it's like a steady payment thing, then we cut them off right now and you leave. Or I'm going to have you on television. You're still going to do the job for me. And you're going to be in a situation where you lose to people like somebody beats Mariah May and it means something because she's a former AEW Women's World Champion. Well, if you want to set up somebody like a Julia Hart or a Chris Statlander or whoever it might be, if you want to set them up as next number one contenders or something, having them beat your former champion is better than nothing, right? So you get a little bit more use out of those people. And not that this is like specifically to be spiteful, but if you lower their stock in the meantime, then it's not a matter of WWE getting them when they're like super duper hot and like, wow, they just came off of a big win streak or something. And then now WWE snatches them up. So I think the worst case scenario is Mariah just sits out for the whole rest of the contract. And then they try to act like they could tack on some more time or something like that. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, but it seems more than likely that unless this is just like some bullshit where, you know, she's just trying to negotiate a new contract and she's saying this, but when they re-sign a new contract, then it's like, I never planned on leaving to begin with. I would assume that we'll probably see Mariah May in like sometime in December, sometime January, maybe in the Royal Rumble. I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe she would be better off if she went to NXT. How old is she at this point? I'm just looking at everybody's ages on this episode. I'm assuming she's in her 20s. She is 26. I think it's probably better for her to go to NXT. And at this point, some people are going to move up on the main roster. You know, it'd be crazy. I would doubt that Roxanne Perez, Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, that they're all still going to be on NXT around that time. If they're all still in NXT in November, something went wrong. So you move a couple of them up to the main roster, you put Mariah May in there, and suddenly you've got your new top heel, I'm assuming probably heel, another like Mandy Rose or Tiffany Stratton type character that you can like realistically put the NXT Women's Championship on relatively soon and then get, you know, a whole nother run out of that. She can learn the WWE style a little bit better, and then you can move her up to the main roster sometime next year, the year after, whatever it might be. I don't think she needs to go straight to the main roster. Jeff Cobb, on the other hand, I do think could be somebody that could go straight to the main roster, but he also feels to me like he probably would end up going to WWE and being put in the NXT system instead, just because I don't think that there's like room for him on the main roster. He's 42 years old too. So it's not like he has, you know, another 20 years before we get to this point talking about that. He's not, you know, Roxanne or somebody who's like 20 something or whatever. Speaking of that, there was a title change on the AEW Collision Spring Breakthru episode that was tonight, where Nick Wayne won the ROH World Television Championship from Komander. And not only is that interesting because it's a title win and it's his first singles title win, but that means that Nick Wayne actually holds a very strange distinction now. He is the youngest AEW tag team champion, the youngest AEW singles champion, if you constitute ROH being like, you know, defended within AEW and all that. And then by proxy of it being a Ring of Honor championship, the youngest Ring of Honor champion of anything. Previously, it was Roxanne, and Roxanne was 19. Nick Wayne is 19, but Roxanne's apparently, she was like a month older when she won the title than what Nick Wayne is right now. So Nick Wayne has this like honor of being this youngest champion. And at 19, I don't think that that's getting beaten. You know, WWE had 20 something year olds and it took a long time to beat those records. 19 is very impressive. Nick Wayne has been doing a great job. I remember when he was first being talked about signed, I was like, I don't know this kid at all, but he's probably really green, and he's progressed in a way that it's like, all right, this 19-year-old, which is crazy, is like a legitimate just, yeah, okay, I wanted him to win this ROH World Television Championship. It made sense to me that he would be a better option than Komander. So congrats to Nick Wayne for pulling that off and for just steadily improving to the point that he is I mean, if he stays in this track record and he continues to improve both on the mic and like his character and his presentation and everything and his in-ring work, I mean, how many world championships is this kid going to win? You know, if it takes him 5 years to get to the point that he's fighting for a championship, he'll still be incredibly young and be able to hold championships for another 15, 20 years or something. It's insane. So he is one of their better signings that they've ever done, it seems. That's not the only championship that changed hands, because the Opps won the AEW World Trios Championships, but not with Hook. Now, if you go back to Dynamite, Spring Breakthru instead of the Collision one, there was a situation where, you know, Pac last week got injured in his match with, I was going to say Ricochet, with Swerve Strickland. And Hook, in his match last week, apparently vomited twice. I didn't see it when it happened, but I saw it afterward. So whatever he's dealing with, some people were saying that it was a concussion. Some people were saying that it was something else, maybe, you know, just being like sick or something. He was pulled from this show, as was Pac. So I was assuming when they announced that it was Moxley that would replace Pac, I was like, oh, okay, well, the 3 normal members of the Opps are just going to win the titles and it's going to be whatever. Instead, when they pulled Hook, I was like, oh, okay, so now it's a replacement champion against 2 members of this 3-person, you know, trios team. It's probably not the best time to change the titles. You do something where you go like, okay, well, we're going to put this on hold, and the 3-on-2 thing is the reason why, and we're going to get a rematch, and then when Hook's ready to go, then you do the 3-on-3, and then they win the titles. Well, they decided instead to have Powerhouse Hobbs replace Hook. And that was certainly not on my bingo card whatsoever. I never would have been like, and probably Powerhouse Hobbs will take Hook's place or something. Like, you would have given me a bunch of guesses and it wouldn't have been that. Not a million guesses, not an infinite amount of guesses. Eventually I would have gotten around to that, but still it wouldn't have been, you know, in my top 10 answers for sure. So the Opps and Powerhouse Hobbs, Katsuya Shibata and Samoa Joe and Hobbs, are now the trios champions. And I'm curious where this leaves Hook, because if he was meant to be 1/3 of those champions and now Hobbs is, well, it's going to be a little bit weird if you have Hobbs just give that title up. And if he's sticking around, then what does Hook do in the meantime? That kind of sucks that he is like, he was supposed to have another championship and then, you know, somebody else ends up holding that title instead. But I like Hobbs, so it's cool. And I'm down with Hobbs being a part of this group. Maybe now it's instead of Powerhouse Hobbs, it's Powerhouse Opps or something. Had to make that stupid joke. Not the only thing that happened on that episode, though. And of course, on both the Collision and the Dynamite episodes of Spring Breakthru, we have 2 little wrinkles when it comes to the Don Callis family. We had known that he was looking out for new people to join, and it seems like he's got 3 members that are kind of reiterating the strength of that group. Trent Barreto had been a part of this before, so he returns, and he has Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero turned heel on Tomohiro Ishii and helped Don Callis' family beat him up afterward, which also includes Josh Alexander, who was the wild card for the Hangman Adam Page match for the Owen Hart Cup. And Alexander lost, immediately gets talked to by Don Callis, hits Page in the back, and seemingly joins the Don Callis family. Now, I am not super duper familiar with Josh Alexander. I've seen a few of his matches in TNA, but I couldn't tell you like what his finisher is. I couldn't tell you like his character beats or anything like that. But this seems like a solid fit. I think if Josh Alexander would have just came into AEW just as himself, then he's the same as everybody else that just comes in as themselves. They're just another guy who can wrestle. And by putting him in the Don Callis family, he's got somebody that can speak for him. He's got somebody that can kind of give him a little bit of a character from the people that aren't familiar with him. I kind of assume, and this is maybe the wrong impression, but I think it's relatively okay to assume this. WWE fans, more than anybody, only watch WWE. AEW fans probably watch WWE and AEW, or they watch AEW and pretty much everything else. most people that I've ever met are either not a fan of pro wrestling at all. Realistically, most people that I've ever met are not fans of pro wrestling. And whenever we talk about it in any capacity, it's like, oh yeah, I remember The Rock. Or like, oh yeah, I used to watch that as a kid. I remember Macho Man Randy Savage, or, you know, whatever, but that's about it. But then most people that are pro wrestling fans that I am ever interacting with pretty much only watch WWE. They'll watch WWE and AEW maybe, but they won't watch, you know, GCW or something. And there are definitely some people in AEW that would go absolutely ballistic about Josh Alexander and just be like, man, I've been watching this guy from TNA and he's so great and this and that and that and that. And then there's a good portion of people, even in AEW, that would be like, I've heard some stuff about this guy, but I don't really know anything about him. WWE, of course, they'd be even more lost. So I do feel like this is probably the best case scenario for him, because the people that aren't familiar with him, they get to see his character grow and he becomes a part of the show through the Don Callis family, as opposed to just being a guy that you're supposed to like because he's supposed to be a good wrestler. WWE doesn't tend to do that all that much, where they just go, this person's been making a big splash elsewhere, watch what they do. They do it every once in a while. They've been doing it with Penta and Rey Fenix, for instance, but they typically try to give them a character, or they give them like some kind of, you know, transitional phase of an element of a debut or something like that. If they're a big enough name, they don't necessarily need to. Like Ricky Starks comes in, they're like, he's Ricky Saints. You probably know him from AEW. Ethan Page, that's Ethan Page. You probably know him from AEW. Lexis King, they're like, well, you might not know him necessarily, so let's talk about Brian Pillman quite a bit. And I think that, again, if Josh Alexander would have just came in and it would have been like, oh man, don't you know this guy? He's another great wrestler. It would be like, all right, well, there's like 90 of them on this roster. Everybody's supposed to be the best wrestler. Hell, you even say this is where the best wrestle. And what's the difference between him and practically anybody else on the card? You know, what separates him from an Okada? Or what separates him from Takeshita or Kyle Fletcher or people that are outside the Don Callis family? You know what I mean? So I like that idea. Rocky Romero, I kind of can't picture being a big deal on the Don Callis family, but strength in numbers is a thing. So maybe it's just a matter of having him and Trent be two people that can lose to people, and they're kind of on the lower tier of the Don Callis family, while the other people get the bigger wins like Fletcher and Takeshita and all. I don't know, but at least with the Alexander thing, I dig it. And I think I actually ran through all my hot tags except for, because we ran through the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I already talked about who I think is going to win that. I think it's going to be Rey Fenix. They still haven't announced anything yet, so we'll see if that changes in any capacity. The only other thing is to talk about TNA Unbreakable, which I, kind of half-ass watched. Like, it's not my thing to really watch TNA, and I'm not going to pretend and say that I paid super duper close attention to every little thing that happened on the show, because I didn't. I was working on some other stuff at the time, but I did watch the show, and I skipped the TNA episode beforehand. I didn't watch that, but quick rundown of the results and my thoughts. Eric Young beats JDC and Zachary Wentz in the semifinals and I just realized that I have a typo there that says semifinals instead of semifinals, so I have to go change that all over the place. Oh man, I waited until all these hours to have semifinals fixed on this. How do you type semifinals? What's wrong with me? Then again, we had that whole discussion about Hank Wanker and Talk Ledger and all this stuff. So that's getting fixed right now. All right. Well, now nobody knows any difference except for the people that listen to this podcast. Eric Young beats Zachary Wentz and JDC for the semifinals. Steve Maclin beats Ace Austin and Eddie Edwards. And then at the end of the night, Steve Maclin pins AJ Francis and, of course, by proxy, beats Eric Young to win the TNA International Championship for the first time. Inaugural champion. I wasn't really I didn't have a horse in this race because all the people that were involved, I'm not following this story, so it didn't really matter to me. But sure, the belt looks okay. The blue strap is a little bit too blue for me, but they were trying to say that represents the ocean between all the different countries and all. So I can I'm okay with that. Moose had an open challenge, and that was met by Sydney Akeem, aka Reginald Thomas, aka Reggie, aka Scripps. Moose won after a low blow and a couple other things. So they had their match. Whatever. He seems like the type of guy that maybe they would end up signing at some point. Maybe throw him in like the X Division or something like that. Mike Santana and the Hardys beat Mustafa Ali and the Nemeth Brothers. Hardys are going to face the Nemeth Brothers at Rebellion for the titles for the tag team division. Probably the titles change hands. I don't know. Joe Hendry and Masha Slamovich beat Frankie Kazarian and Tessa Blanchard. Now, when we get to Rebellion predictions, I fully expect Tessa Blanchard to win the Knockouts Championship. Not necessarily expecting Frankie Kazarian to beat Joe Hendry, but it's a possibility. Somebody else could in the meantime, too. Sami Callihan beat Mance Warner in the Barbed Wire Massacre match. Some spots in there that worth checking out. Overall, some hardcore match, what you're getting. And Unbreakable as like a little TNA Plus special. That's like a pay-per-view, but it's not a pay-per-view, but it is a pay-per-view because you have to pay per viewing it, that kind of a thing, is something that I can't honestly say from what I did watch that it would be like, oh, if you missed it, man, you missed that one hell of a pay-per-view. I will say, though, if you missed all of the stuff that happened in pro wrestling this week, what I would tell you to go back and rewatch are the Owen Hart Cup matches that were on Dynamite, because I added the Mercedes Moné and Athena match and the Ospreay and Takeshita match, both to my match of the year list. They were spectacular matches, so I very much recommend going back and checking them out. Hopefully tomorrow, or I guess today, because it's 1:30 in the morning, on SmackDown, hopefully we end up getting a game-changing, super amazing Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and the WWE Tag Team title match between the Motor City Machine Guns and the Street Profits. Has a lot of potential to be a kick-ass match, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we're going to roll along into all the insanity of WrestleMania, because 2 hours after that, we've got the Hall of Fame at 1 a.m, and then we roll into NXT with the WWE Stand and Deliver pay-per-view, which immediately goes into the WrestleMania Saturday stuff. So stay tuned to the NXT Stand and Deliver pay-per-view post-show that we're going to be trying to cram in there in between. But of course, I'll have live coverage on smarkoutmoment.com and ewrestlingnews.com and the Ring Report. And I'm going to, be bouncing around like an idiot this weekend. Of course, I mentioned as well the WrestleMania coverage. You can find that all over the place too, the post shows and everything like that. And, the normal setup that we've got going on will probably, you're going to have at least me on the post shows for all three of those. I'm assuming that it's probably going to be just me. So if that is the case, I might try to, on a whim, just like toss it out there to get people into the watch party thing on Discord, and maybe just be like, look, let it rain chaos or something. I don't know. So if you do want to be a part of that, if that potentially happens, you got to join the Discord server. And then, maybe it's a test run of being able to have people subscribe and do something like that. I don't know. Again, I don't want to commit to anything 100%, but it's something that I'm thinking about. Keep in mind, all my stuff that you have to follow, it's all up on amangotree.com and anthonymango.com. That all redirects to a link tree that I have that lists the Smark Out Moment stuff, the Fanboys Anonymous stuff, and some of my own personal stuff, like my Letterboxd and my Instagram account that I don't do anything with for the most part, if I'm being perfectly honest. I only click on Instagram when people send me things. I click onto the messages there, and then I go, oh, neat, or it's funny, or bypass it, or hit the like button or something, and then I close the app because I think that Instagram pretty much sucks. It's never been something I've been super into. I check X whenever somebody posts something, like, tags me in something. I do the same with Facebook and Messenger and stuff. But, if you want to follow all these different accounts and stuff, that is where you can find all that stuff. I'm at Tony Mango for a good portion of them. And, along the way with anything else, maybe I'll pop up here and there. You never really know, but that's the whole point of following, is because, something like Blue Sky. For all I know, maybe I start getting into Blue Sky or something. Maybe I'm not even around here tomorrow. I don't even know. God, I gotta stop doing that kind of stuff on this podcast. But it is what it is. It's 2025. You know how it goes. So anyway, before this goes into the same direction as the beginning of this, I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you for all your support. I want to remind you that you can support us on all different platforms and Patreon and everything like that. But if you liked this podcast, if you like the podcast we normally do, hit the like button, and that will, boost up our viewability for everybody else going forward and stuff. And, anything like that's greatly appreciated, even if it is a non-monetary thing. So I got some editing I got to do with this to set this all up and get everybody to where they can listen to this episode, and some other things I got to still write up. So adios for now, everybody. This is going to do me in. This has been another Smark Out moment, and I am being counted out.